I wasn't nervous until it was time to come up here, and now my heart's like racing. So I'll just read and then I'll calm down. I'm Allysia. I'm an addict. Hi, family. Oh, where did it go? You know how when you're reading through the book and you're like, oh, that's so good. That's what I want to share. And now, like, I don't know if somebody unfolded the page. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to read out of Living Clean, Chapter 7, The Journey Continues, and the lifelong practice of surrender. And I love the Living Clean book. I'm actually doing the steps out of it right now, the steps around relationships. And so there's some really good stuff in here. Our understanding of surrender may change over time, but our need for it does not. In the beginning, surrender might just be about not using drugs. As time goes by, we start to see other ways our addiction plays out in our lives. We become willing to surrender other behaviors, sometimes one by one. We come to understand that using whatever we're using is just a symptom of our problem, which is spiritual in nature. Gradually, we start to let go of the things that drive us to act out: denial, anger, resentment, the need to be right, the feelings of superiority or inferiority, shame, remorse, and fear. As our understanding of the first step grows, we surrender more deeply, our trust grows, and we become a little more willing to let go. We can see more areas of our lives where we are still clinging to the illusion of control. Surrender rarely looks appealing in the beginning, but it takes us progressively less time to notice what we are doing isn't working. When what we are doing isn't working. At first, we may let go only when we are beaten, but our tolerance for pain diminishes as we recover. We are less willing to go along with things that would wound our spirit as we have more experience with the hope and healing that follows. We recognize surrender as a way we put our feet on the ground. The shift from thinking that we surrender to our disease to realizing that we can surrender to our recovery is a spiritual awakening. So I read that because like my last day using was definitely a spiritual awakening for me, right? Like I was walking down Flavel and just like beaten, broken, hopeless, sad, defeated. I had fully accepted the fact that I was going to die a junkie, and I was just like okay with that, right? And I just remember it was December 16th, 2016, and it was freezing cold outside, and I had like all these bags, and the moon was like so big and beautiful in the sky, and I was running from the person that I was choosing to be with, and for a long time I said that I called him my abuser, right? And while he was abusing me, I just have to say that after doing the work and doing the steps, I kept showing up for that, right? So not only was that, yes, that was happening, but I kept participating in it, right? So I can take accountability for the part that I played in the things that happened to me, right? I wasn't a victim, and I will not be a victim. So I kept showing up for that, right? So anyways, I just remember that I was trying to get away again, and I remember looking up in the sky and like screaming out to God, like, I need some space. I need some time. I'm done, right? And an hour later, I was in handcuffs. And, before I got arrested, I remember we were standing outside this van. I'm at this trap house, and this rickety-ass van. And it's like, check, 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 check. No L's, no insurance, right? And I'm looking at it, and I was like, you get in that van, you're going to jail, right? But instead, I got in anyways. And so we got like right around the corner. We were on 82nd and Luther, and whoop, whoop, right? And so they pull us over. And I had just learned that I can ask if I'm being detained, and like I can walk away if they say no, right? And so I'm like, oh, am I being detained? And they're like, no, you can go, but what's your name? And I was like, Allysia Williams, as I'm walking away, right? And then next thing I know, the cop is like, oh, Miss Williams, come back here. You got a 1013. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that, right? And he's like, you got a warrant out of Multnomah County. Please don't run. You're really tiny, and I don't want to tackle you. And I'm like, fuck, But it was like in that moment, that surrender piece happened, right? And I was like, that's fine. I just need a cigarette. You know what I mean? And he was like, I got you. He gave me a cigarette, put it in my mouth, and I was like, by the way, here's this. And I just started unloading everything that I had, all the paraphernalia, all the dirty stuff that I had that I probably shouldn't have had, could have caught more charges for, and just like, it was relief, right? And I remember him putting those handcuffs on, and it felt like heaven. that cold metal, just, oh my goodness, I can still remember it. It felt good, right? And so I'm in the back of the car and I'm next to this girl who got us pulled over, and she's like, oh my God, we're gonna be sick. And for the first time being arrested, because I had been doing this for over a decade, right? Like, it took me like 7 treatment centers and over a decade, and losing a kid that got adopted out, and my oldest, who's here with me tonight, I'm telling you, a long time to get to this point, right? And she's like, we're gonna be sick, and da 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 da, and like, I didn't care, you know what I mean? I didn't care this time, and so they took me to jail, and I ended up spending 9 months in jail, and like, you know, I learned how to love myself. I learned how to work. I learned how to be a woman of my word. I learned how to mind my business, right? And like, not be in the shit, and like, you know, because every other time that I would go to jail, like, I wanted to fight, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that, and I wanted to get money, and blah, blah, blah. You know, all the things that we do, that insanity piece when we go to jail, and you're on the phone and you're calling all these people that you don't talk to, or that are taking care of your kids, and asking them to put money on your books so you can have fucking snacks in there. Like, you're not even a good parent. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck do they look like giving you some snacks? So anyways, but this time I was like, I got a job, and I was working 3 jobs, right, for $1 a day. I was on work crew. I would go straight from work crew to the kitchen, and then straight from the kitchen to hall crew. And I found respect for myself, and I found work ethic, and happiness. And so when I was, once I got released from there, I went to VOA. And it was my second time at VOA. And what I would normally do is I would take my kids back right away, right? Because everybody would be like, oh, you're supposed to take your kids, and this is what you're supposed to do, and blah, 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 blah. But for some reason, this time was different. And I wanted to give myself a chance to heal and to like sift through the shit, right? Like the baggage. Like, you know that song by Erykah Badu, Bag Lady? I was absolutely the bag lady, right? And it wasn't just physical bags. I had spiritual and emotional baggage that I was tired of carrying. And so I sifted through that, and I actually worked on it, you know, and I got some peace and some serenity for a moment before I was engaging with my children again, you know, and I didn't take them back right away. And when I moved out, I moved down to the Estates. And I will tell you what, if you don't want to stay clean, you won't down there, right? But if you want to stay clean, you will. And it was amazing and crazy at the same time, you know. I remember I used to go down to Burnside Blues, and there was this corny ass white boy, and don't take offense if I say it like that, please. I'm half white, so but there was like this corny ass white boy, right, that used to be in there, and I would like duck and dodge him and his friend, right, because they were just so ridiculous. And I just remember the first time I heard him speak, and he stood up and he was like, my name's Snoop and I'm a tweaker, right? And I was like, oh, this guy, he's so funny, right? But after the meeting, like he stayed and he talked to me, right? And I was like, okay, so what the fuck does he want? You know what I mean? Because that's how my mind was, right? All men want something. And I didn't know how to have healthy relationships with men when I got here, right? And so this was one person in my life, one man in my life that like, that never wanted anything but the best for me, right? And he taught me that a man can love you without putting his hands on you, without trying to have sex with you, without trying to exploit you, like all these things, right? And so that was like one of the first healthy relationships that I had, no matter how fucking crazy he was, right? Like, but that was one of the first relationships that I had in these rooms with a male that was healthy. And so I spent some time down there at the Estates. I moved into Oxford, and like I did all the things that you were supposed to do, right? I got this sponsor, and I tried to work the steps with her, but like I don't think that she was as clean as I thought she was, you know? And so like when I was trying to work steps with her, she always was like ducking and dodging me, and we'll come to find out because like she had relapsed. And so it's really hard to work steps with somebody when you're loaded, you know what I mean? And so so that didn't work out. And so then I was like, oh, well, that's my, you know, that was my excuse not to work steps for a little bit, you know? And so I lived in Oxford. I ended up not taking the advice of not getting in a relationship in my first year. And I'm grateful that I didn't, because I had an amazing little girl, right? And I also had another great relationship, that I was able to like parent this child in a normal, healthy way, right? And reunite with my other children without chaos and violence and like all these things that we were accustomed to, you know. Because my oldest, like he went through everything. You know, when you're young and you have a kid, anybody who's a parent, like they grow up with you, right? And especially when you're in your addiction, like we drag them along and we think that we're being parents and we're doing something good because we're still present. But really we're just taking them through the shit with us, right? And then my second child, like I used all the way up until the moment that I was giving birth to her, right? And she's the one who my mom adopted. Thank God my mom adopted her. But like this little girl, you know, I got to have her and I got to be clean from start to finish of the pregnancy, because I'm not far from finished. But you know, she goes to meetings with me. She knows the Serenity Prayer, like all these things, right? And so we moved out of Oxford and we moved in with Snoop and his woman, and we had like this little family, like chosen family house, you know, this little recovery house, and it was pretty amazing. And like, so I learned how to pay bills again, you know what I mean? Like more bills, because Oxford is bills, but it's like little bills, you know what I mean? Like it's only $500 a month. And, you know, at the time that was a lot, not a lot, you know, but then we're paying like half of like way more, you know, and electricity and all the things. And so like learning how to pay the bills, learning how to stay grounded, how to like talk things out when they're uncomfortable with your roommates and things like that. And then I was able to get my first apartment in a long time, you know, like 20 years, I want to say. And that was, you know, because of the things that I learned here, right? Like how to write a letter of reasonable accommodations, how to ask for help, how to ask for support, how to tell people like your story in a way so that they know what they're getting into when you're coming into the situation, and not having to hide and be like worried about what they're going to run my background and what they're going to find. You know, I could just be like, listen, I've been in recovery for this many years and this is what you're going to find when you run my name, but I'm willing to put in the work to be here and to be a responsible, productive member of this apartment complex, right? And like live here and pay my rent and stuff like that. And so we did, you know, for a couple years. I got another sponsor, you know, after my friend passed away. I was really angry at the program, right? And so because I thought, like, how could somebody who had everything, right, do not be here anymore, right? And it must be because you guys didn't help him the way he needed, and because people didn't show up the way he needed, right? And I thought that for some years, you know, and then like COVID hit and all the George Floyd stuff, and I got really sick, like spiritually, you know. I was alone, I was isolated, as many of us were, and when things started opening back up again, I started getting involved again, and I asked somebody else to be my sponsor. And at 5 years clean, I opened up the book and started doing the steps, right? And what's crazy is that when I'm doing the steps, it's not just like, oh, I'm writing them down and I'm answering questions. No, my fucking life is like whatever step I'm on, and like whatever question is I'm answering is like what is happening and what's going on. And these are the things that are showing up for me. And so I'm legitimately working through them. And you know, my God is just real funny like that. He's like, oh, you want to do some work? So here you go. You're going to do a lot of work, right? So yeah, I got that sponsor, and she's an amazing woman, and she, you know, she suggests that I become a sponsor myself, and that's scary, right? Because I don't want to be responsible for somebody else's sobriety, but that's what we get to do here, right? Like we get to give them suggestions, and it doesn't make me responsible for your clean date or for your clean time. I just get to lead the way, and I get to help you, and I get to be of service to the person who needs it. And yeah, my mind just went completely blank. I don't know what I was going to say next. I don't know. Sponsorship. Yeah, she tells me I need to be a sponsor. Okay. So now we're back to the second round of steps, and it's on relationships, right? And so I find that really funny. Once again, is we're gonna go and we're gonna do these steps around relationships, and there's like so many questions that are really in depth. And I I was kind of afraid at first to work on that and to pull back those layers, but it's actually an amazing experience that we get to do here, right? Like we get to learn these things about ourselves, and we get to figure out why we were doing the things that we were doing, right? Because it's like the behaviors don't all go away. You don't magically become like this cool, like sane, fucking holier than thou person when you get clean. Like, no, we're still all really fucked up and really sick, and we act out on a lot of behaviors, you know? I shouldn't say we, I'll speak for myself. Still act out on a lot of crazy shit sometimes, right? But I'm learning how to not act out on that stuff and like be able to pull myself out of situations where I see that like that type of behavior doesn't serve me anymore, right? That's not the type of woman that I want to be anymore. I don't show up and I don't participate the way that I once did. And that's all because, you know, I have dug into the step work and into the literature, and I go to meetings and I get to sit and listen and, keep going. Okay. And be of service to other women. And I get to be a service to my family, right? These kids that I was at the Rose Festival yesterday with my little girls, and it's just amazing, right? Like the resilience in our children and the love that they have for us. And like the way that I used to look at myself, it's like they don't see us like that, right? Like you're still like this beautiful, magical, wonderful person to them, no matter how bad you feel inside or how bad you look on the inside when you look, or on the outside when you look at yourself in the mirror, right? And so I got to hang out with these little girls and just listen to them talk and take them on rides, and you know, it was a very nostalgic feeling. And then like I've got this big kid, right, that lives in my house, this man child that lives in my house, and like he's fucking amazing, right? Like he was dealt a really shitty hand of cards when it comes to the parent picking. You know, jails, institutions are definitely part of our story, a very big part of our story, and he's like a good kid, you know. He works, he helps his mama pay the bills, he looks after his little sister when he needs to, and he decided to show up for me tonight, you know, because because I was nervous, and I was like, hey, come hang out with me, you know, why don't you want to hang out with me? He's like, fine, I'll put my video games down for a little bit, you know, but I just, I look to him for inspiration, right? Because how could somebody whose parents, like one has been incarcerated his entire life, and I was gone for over a decade, and he's just like this loving, understanding, compassionate person, right? And like he fucking forgave me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's priceless to me, you know? I still haven't fully forgiven my parents, so like hats off to you, kid, you know? I don't know what else to say. Last time I talked way too long, and so I was like trying to shorten it up this time. And I did that, and so I don't know what else to say. Oh, and I only got 10 minutes, so what do you want me to do for 10 minutes, Roger? Just keep going? Okay. I don't know what else to say. Usually I have so much to talk about. You know, I have this really great job, right? Like, so I have this job where like my life experience is what I got hired for, right? Like, I remember when I first got hired at VOA, right? Like I did VOA twice, and then, and they hired me afterwards, and I was like, do you guys know who I am? And they were like, yeah, and they were like really standoffish, right? But now I work for a different company, and it's like, when I went in there and I did the training class, you know, the more I shared about my life, the more they were like, oh, we want you. You would be great here, you know? And I'm like, really? You know? And so I didn't really know what I was stepping into when I started peer support. But I'll tell you, it's not for the weak, for one. Two, and But at the same time, I feel like my job is also a part of my service, right? Like it doesn't equal my recovery, but it helps my recovery, right? And when I first started, I had a lot of biases and a lot of judgment. I still have a lot of biases and judgment, right? But I know how to check that shit now, and I know how to meet somebody where they're at and show up with them with love and kindness and support them on whatever their journey looks like. You know what I mean? And not impose my will and just be myself, and then like be able to be like, oh, that's really shitty thinking, Allysia, you know, and then like look inside and be like, well, why am I looking at that person like this? Because you're no better. You know what I mean? Like, how dare you pass judgment on that person when you were just doing that however many years ago, right? And so then that is like where I'll call my sponsor and be like, oh, guess what I learned today, right? Like I'm real fucking judgmental about A, B, and C. And she's like, great, let's do some work around that, right? And I'm like, cool, you know? And so I get to like learn those things about myself every day when I go to work. So it's like this stuff doesn't stop. What we learn in here, we get to take outside, and we get to take it to our families, and we get to take it into our jobs, and we get to take it into our friendships and all the relationships that we have and the people that we encounter along this journey. The things that we are taught in these rooms and in this literature flows through us. It comes out of us, and we get to teach people, even the normies, how to like love and be happy and take the things that happen that were meant to destroy us and use that as like your armor and your foundation to build on, to have a life that you never thought or dreamed was possible for yourself. And really that's all that I've got. So thank you.